The crowd fell silent as Marcus Thompson stood face to face with the man who had tormented his son for months. His hands trembled, not with fear, but with a fury he'd never known before. What happened in the next few moments would change not just his life and his son's, but an entire community. Sometimes, when pushed too far, even the gentlest souls find strength they never knew they possessed. Before we dive deeper into this incredible true story, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories of ordinary people facing extraordinary circumstances. Your support helps us continue sharing these life-changing moments that remind us of our shared humanity. Marcus never wanted to be a single father. That wasn't the plan when he and Elaine got married 8 years ago, their hearts full of dreams for their future family. But life rarely follows our carefully laid plans. When Elaine's battle with cancer ended 3 years ago, Marcus found himself alone with their 5-year-old son, Ethan. Both of them adrift in a sea of grief neither knew how to navigate. By day, Marcus worked as an accountant at a small firm in their suburban town of Millfield. By night, he struggled to be both mother and father to a boy who still asked when mommy was coming home. The dark circles under Marcus's eyes had become a permanent fixture, much like the forced smile he wore to convince Ethan, and himself, that they would be okay. Their modest 2-bedroom house still held Elaine's presence in every corner. Her books remained on the shelves, her favorite mug still hung in the kitchen, and her garden, though not as vibrant as when she tended it, continued to bloom each spring. Marcus couldn't bear to remove these pieces of her, these tangible reminders that she had existed, that she had loved them. Ethan had his mother's eyes, deep brown with flecks of gold that caught the light when he laughed. But those laughs had become increasingly rare since starting second grade at Millfield Elementary. At first, Marcus attributed the change to normal childhood ups and downs. Kids had bad days, that's what he told himself. When Ethan came home quieter than usual, when he picked at his dinner instead of devouring it with his usual enthusiasm. "How was school today, buddy?" Marcus would ask, trying to keep his voice light as he prepared dinner. Usually something simple like spaghetti or chicken nuggets, dishes he couldn't mess up too badly. "Fine," Ethan would reply, his eyes fixed on his plate, pushing food around rather than eating it. It wasn't until Marcus found Ethan's favorite backpack, the blue one with dinosaurs that Elaine had given him for his last birthday with her, soaking wet in the trash can, that he realized something was seriously wrong. "Ethan," Marcus said, holding the dripping backpack. "What happened?" Ethan's lower lip trembled, and the tears came. Not the dramatic sobs of a child who had fallen on the playground, but the quiet, defeated tears of someone who had been holding pain inside for too long. "Tyler said only babies like dinosaurs," Ethan whispered. "He pushed me into the fountain at the park after school. He said if I told anyone he'd hurt me worse tomorrow." Marcus felt something cold and hard form in his chest. "Who is Tyler?" "He's in 4th grade. His dad is Mr. Donovan, the gym teacher. Richard Donovan." Marcus knew the name. Everyone in Millfield knew the Donovans. Richard had been the star quarterback of Millfield High 20 years ago, married the head cheerleader, and never really left his glory days behind. Now he coached the high school football team and taught physical education at the elementary school. His son, it seemed, had inherited his father's status but none of his sportsmanship. That night, after tucking Ethan into bed with extra stories and reassurances, Marcus wrote an email to Ethan's teacher, Ms. Chen, explaining what had happened and asking for her help in addressing the situation. Her response the next morning was prompt and concerned. She promised to keep an eye on the boys and speak with Mr. Donovan about his son's behavior. For a few days, things seemed better. Ethan came home with stories about playing with his friend Leo at recess, about the science project they were starting, about the book Ms. Chen was reading to the class. Marcus began to breathe easier, thinking the situation had been resolved. Then came the phone call from the school nurse. Ethan had fallen during recess and sprained his wrist. When Marcus arrived at the school, he found his son sitting in the nurse's office, cradling his bandaged arm, his face streaked with dried tears. "He didn't fall," Leo said fiercely, sitting beside his friend despite the nurse's attempts to send him back to class. "Tyler pushed him off the monkey bars and said it was an accident." The nurse, a kind woman named Mrs. Patel who had been at the school for decades, gave Marcus a look that confirmed Leo's version of events. There were no teachers close enough to see what happened, she said quietly. But this isn't the first time Tyler has been involved in an accident. Marcus knelt in front of his son. Is that true, Ethan? Did Tyler push you? Ethan's eyes darted fearfully to the door before he gave a tiny nod. That afternoon, instead of taking Ethan straight home, Marcus marched into the principal's office. Principal Winters, a tall woman with prematurely gray hair and kind eyes behind severe glasses, listened as Marcus explained what had been happening. I understand your concern, Mr. Thompson, she said when he finished. Bullying is something we take very seriously at Millfield Elementary. I'll speak with Mr. Donovan and his son immediately. Thank you, Marcus said, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. Surely now that the principal was involved, the bullying would stop. But it didn't stop. It got worse. The following week, Ethan came home with a torn shirt and refused to tell Marcus what happened. The week after that, he lost his lunch money 3 days in a row. When Marcus packed him a lunch instead, Ethan returned home hungry, admitting that Tyler had taken that too. Each incident was reported to the school. Each time, Principal Winters assured Marcus that she was handling it. Each time, nothing changed. They're not doing anything because they're afraid of Mr. Donovan, Leo told Marcus one afternoon, when he came over to play with Ethan. My mom says he has the school board in his pocket because of all the championships he's won. Marcus didn't want to believe that adults would allow a child to be bullied because of politics. But as the weeks passed and Ethan withdrew further into himself, he began to wonder if Leo's mother was right. The breaking point came on a rainy Tuesday in October. Marcus was at work when his phone rang. It was Mrs. Patel again, but this time her voice was tight with anger. Mr. Thompson, you need to come to the school right away. He's been hurt. Marcus broke every speed limit driving to the school. He found Ethan in the nurse's office again, but this time his son was almost unrecognizable. His left eye was swollen shut, his lip was split, and his shirt was torn and dirty. What happened? Marcus demanded, his voice breaking as he gathered his trembling son into his arms. He was found in the boys' bathroom, Mrs. Patel said, her usual professional demeanor cracking. Tyler and 2 other boys, she couldn't finish. They were holding him down and cutting off his hair. Came a voice from the doorway. Miss Chen stood there, holding a small plastic bag containing locks of Ethan's dark hair. I heard the commotion and stopped it, but not before. She gestured helplessly at Ethan's injuries. Where is Principal Winters? Marcus asked, his voice dangerously calm. She's with the other boys and their parents in her office, Miss Chen said, including Mr. Donovan. Marcus carefully set Ethan back on the examination table. Stay with Mrs. Patel for a minute, buddy. I need to talk to some people. Dad, don't, Ethan pleaded, grabbing his father's hand. It'll just make it worse. The fear in his son's voice, the resignation that nothing could be done to protect him, broke something in Marcus. He kissed Ethan's forehead. Trust me, Ethan. No one is ever going to hurt you again. The walk to Principal Winters' office felt like miles. When Marcus entered without knocking, 5 faces turned toward him. Principal Winters behind her desk, looking uncomfortable. 2 boys he didn't recognize sitting with women who must be their mothers. And Richard Donovan standing with his hand on his son's shoulder, both of them wearing expressions that were more annoyed than remorseful. Mr. Thompson, Principal Winters began. We were just discussing. 3 against 1, Marcus interrupted, his voice still eerily calm. 3 boys against my son, who is 2 years younger and half their size. They held him down and cut his hair. They beat him until his eye swelled shut. And this isn't the first time. Boys will be boys, Richard Donovan said with a dismissive wave. Tyler says your son was asking for it, always crying and telling tales. Marcus turned to face the man who had been the source of so much pain for his family. Richard Donovan was tall and still fit, with the confident bearing of someone who had never faced consequences for his actions. His son was a smaller version of him, right down to the smirk that played at the corner of his mouth. My son, Marcus said, stepping closer to Donovan, lost his mother 3 years ago. He's 8 years old and trying to navigate a world that already took the most important person from him. And your son, under your guidance, decided to make that world even more painful. Donovan rolled his eyes. Look, I'm sorry about your wife, but that doesn't give your kid the right to be a wimp. Maybe if you were raising him properly." The words died in his throat as Marcus moved with a speed no one expected, grabbing Donovan by the collar of his expensive polo shirt and pushing him against the wall. The room erupted in gasps and shouts, but Marcus didn't hear them. All he heard was the blood rushing in his ears and Elaine's voice in his memory, making him promise to protect their son. "You think this is about being tough?" Marcus hissed, his face inches from Donovan's. "You think hurting someone smaller makes you strong? Let me tell you what strength is, Donovan. Strength is getting up every morning when your heart is shattered. Strength is making breakfast and packing lunches and reading bedtime stories when all you want to do is fall apart. Strength is being both parents when there should be two." He released Donovan with a small shove, stepping back. "Your son is a bully because you're a bully, and I'm done letting bullies hurt my family." The room was silent as Marcus turned to Principal Winters. "I'm taking my son home now. When he returns to school, I expect these boys to be nowhere near him. I expect the adults in this building to do their jobs and protect him. And if that doesn't happen, the next conversation we have will be with my lawyer and the school board." As Marcus turned to leave, Tyler Donovan's voice stopped him. "Your son is still a crybaby and you're just a—" "Tyler!" Principal Winters cut him off sharply, her face flushed with anger. "That's enough!" But the damage was done. Marcus saw the look of triumph on Richard Donovan's face, the way he squeezed his son's shoulder in approval. In that moment, Marcus knew that nothing would change. The system was broken, and his son would continue to suffer unless he did something drastic. That night, after Ethan had finally fallen asleep, Marcus made 3 phone calls. The first was to his boss, explaining that he needed a few days off for a family emergency. The second was to his sister in Portland, asking if she and her husband could come stay with Ethan for a week. The third was to a number he found after an hour of research online. 2 days later, Marcus sat in a coffee shop across from a woman named Diane Reynolds, a journalist for the regional newspaper who had made a name for herself exposing corruption in small-town politics. "So let me get this straight," Diane said, reviewing her notes. "You believe the school is protecting Richard Donovan's son despite multiple incidents of bullying, including a physical assault that sent your son to the emergency room for stitches?" Marcus nodded, sliding a folder across the table. "These are copies of all the emails I've sent to the school, the incident reports, and the medical bills. There are also statements from other parents whose children have been bullied by Tyler Donovan and his friends." Diane raised an eyebrow as she flipped through the documents. "How did you get these other parents to come forward?" "I started a Facebook group," Marcus admitted. "After what happened to Ethan, I wanted to know if we were the only ones. We weren't. There are 15 families in that group now, all with similar stories. None of them have gotten justice either. And you're willing to go on record with all of this? You understand there could be backlash?" Marcus thought of Ethan's swollen face, of the fear in his eyes when he begged his father not to make things worse. "I understand that my son deserves to feel safe at school. Whatever happens to me doesn't matter." Diane studied him for a long moment before nodding. "I'll need to verify everything and get comments from the school and Mr. Donovan, but if this checks out, we have a story, a big one." The article ran the following Sunday, taking up the entire front page of the local section. "Culture of Silence. Millfield Elementary's bullying problem," read the headline, accompanied by a photo of Ethan's injuries, with his face blurred, and quotes from multiple parents describing similar experiences. By Monday morning, the story had been picked up by the regional news stations. By Monday afternoon, the school board had called an emergency meeting. By Monday evening, Marcus's phone was ringing non-stop with calls from parents, reporters, and even a representative from the State Department of Education. The school board meeting on Tuesday night was standing room only. Parents, teachers, and community members packed the usually empty room, many holding signs with messages like "Protect all children" and "No more bullies." Marcus sat in the front row, surrounded by the other parents from his Facebook group, all of them wearing blue ribbons, Ethan's favorite color. Across the aisle, Richard Donovan sat alone, his usual confident smirk replaced by a scowl. The board president, a nervous man named Harold Jenkins, who had been friends with Donovan since high school, called the meeting to order. We're here tonight to address the concerns raised in the recent newspaper article about bullying at Millfield Elementary. We want to assure everyone that the board takes these allegations very seriously. They're not allegations, called a voice from the back of the room. They're facts. My daughter came home with a black eye last month, and nothing was done. Other voices joined in, sharing similar stories until the room was a cacophony of anger and pain. Jenkins banged his gavel repeatedly, trying to restore order. Please, everyone, we need to proceed in an orderly fashion. Mr. Donovan has asked to speak first, as he feels he's been unfairly portrayed in the media. Richard Donovan strode to the podium, adjusting his tie as he faced the crowd. I want to thank the board for giving me this opportunity to set the record straight. The accusations against my son and by extension against me are grossly exaggerated. Kids roughhouse. They tease each other. It's part of growing up and developing thick skin. Murmurs of disagreement rippled through the audience, but Donovan pressed on. What we're seeing here is a witch hunt led by a man who, quite frankly, has failed as a father. Marcus Thompson has raised a son who doesn't know how to stand up for himself, and now he's looking for someone to blame. Marcus felt the parents around him tense, ready to jump to his defense, but he placed a calming hand on the arm of the mother next to him. This was exactly what he had expected. Donovan was showing his true colors for everyone to see. Furthermore, Donovan continued, his voice rising. I've been a pillar of this community for 20 years. I've brought championships to our school, put Millfield on the map. And this is how I'm repaid? With lies and slander from a man who's been here less than 5 years? When Donovan finally finished his tirade, the room was silent. He returned to his seat with the satisfied air of someone who believed he had won the argument. The board president cleared his throat. Thank you, Mr. Donovan. Now, we'll hear from Mr. Thompson. Marcus walked to the podium slowly, feeling the weight of every eye in the room. He had prepared a speech, had practiced it for hours, but as he looked out at the sea of faces, some angry, some hopeful, all waiting for him to speak, he set his notes aside. My name is Marcus Thompson, he began, his voice steady despite the pounding of his heart. 3 years ago, I watched my wife die of cancer. I held her hand as she made me promise to take care of our son.